Okay. Um, we welcome back to the show, Mr. Stone, and we wanted to do another podcast edition on the past, present, and future. And just reminiscing on the past and the present, it was interesting that you sent me a nice little philosophical reminder and wisdom about golf and taking the shot. Once the shot is done, you have to be okay with the way that it plays out for the rest of the game and look forward and not think about anything, how it could have been better or different. Just sit with it and continue on, right? And I remember sitting in the car with my friend Matthew earlier this year and saying that big changes are coming in 2025, not just for me, but for the whole world. It reminds me of the song that Tupac did called Changes. But we can never go nowhere unless we share with each other. We got to start making changes. That's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. There's wars going on. We have Donald Trump on the main stage, politics, theatrics, changes, purging, purification. And peace is now the goal. It seems like that we're moving into the golden age, and that's what Trump said. He wants to be known as the man of peace. So I was looking up peace quotes in preparing for this talk, and one by Rigoberta Menchu. He said, "Peace cannot exist without justice. Justice cannot exist without fairness. Fairness cannot exist without development. Development cannot exist without democracy. Democracy cannot exist without respect for the identity of worth of cultures and people." And recently, Attract Passion is a channel that I like to follow on YouTube. And he was talking about quantum physics, a magnetic field actually completely restructures the formation of the electrons in the atom. And our heart has 5,000 times the magnetic power and 60 times the electrical component of the brain, more pathways running to the mind than vice versa. So it's interesting that the heart, and Earth is an anagram for heart, right? Our heart is ultimately the true guide. And we also need to remember that brain heart coherence, because if the heart can turn bitter, there's disharmony, and then it's more mind-based ego instead of coherence. So this is a beautiful reminder the past couple of days. I think everyone needs that reminder because we all struggle. We all deal with personal stuff, right? And I wrote this on several days ago now, just thinking about how we can approach this whole topic. And this came to me in quiet meditation. Outside of the now lies chaos and disorder. But chaos is a structured order in itself, for through chaos comes the calm, the pathless path. Many of us have overcome. There's a lot of changes, and, things that needed to happen come to the surface that have been just brewing and settling, and now being forced to give attention to the desired necessity and what is best now for the collective and the individual. Overcome Previously, I overcame homelessness, and I'm sitting in a bachelor's pad. It's beautiful, just watching everything just come to fruition. We're in the year of the snake in the Chinese calendar, so about shedding the old, preparing for the new, being reborn. And Scorpio full moon is coming up on the 12th, which is interesting. It's not just a regular full moon. So this is just a post that I saved. It's interesting because this is going to be a powerful transformation. It's perfect timing that we chose to do this talk. Um, a psychic excavation, a sacred confirmation with the parts of you you thought you buried for good. Scorpio doesn't flinch, right? Like a scorpion would rather sting itself than be trapped and caught in nature. It doesn't care about your curated healing. It wants the truth, the kind that shakes, the kind that breaks, the kind that frees. And also the sun is in Taurus, which is about comfort, control, and survival mode. Moon's in Scorpio, which is about our shadow self, surrendering and transformation. And Mercury, the planet of communication, intellect, and the mind, is squaring with Pluto, which is about obsessions, clarity, truths that won't back in the box, that won't go back in the box. Pluto's in retrograde, which is about collective and personal reckonings. It's not a vibe, it's a reckoning. So expect emotional detox like a soul purge, obsessions demanding clarity, tension between safety and truth, and a final breaking point that's actually breakthrough. Say what's been unsaid, even if your voice shakes. Let go of false safety. Your truth matters more than approval. And a final reminder, you're not the pain, you're the one choosing to meet it. And that's power. What version of me is ready to die so something more honest could live? That was posted by Color Me Crazy, because it goes perfectly along with this quote I heard once. I stopped doing things once I realized it was an insult to my soul. The Metaphysia movie, I'm not sure if you've seen it. There is a chief named Sane Reina, and he talks about the great humbling is coming because of the destruction and the disrespect that has gone on for far too long with Mother Nature. There's a reckoning coming and a great humbling coming, going back to our roots, because we've been disconnected for so long that the healing is now just coming to the surface, whether people want it or not, if they choose to, of course. But some people are being pushed and other people have just chose their path. And finally, I'll leave on this note as an introduction. Teal Swan said this. It was so good. I had to capture it. There's a go big or go home quality to 2025. Excuse my French, but there's a kind of fuck it energy for 2025. Each person's being called to form a personal definition of the extraordinary life, of an extraordinary life. 2025 is the year of you can't live less than you were meant to live. You can't live less than what is possible to live. This is a big risk year requiring balls to the walls level bravery. In 2025, there will be no settling for less, which seems very on point, I feel, because I had to take a long look at certain choices that I was making, and especially health-wise, I was forced almost to make different changes, learning about all the new information that has come to the surface just in my own home environment, products that I've been using, shampoo I no longer use, just use a nice black African soap, exfoliator, cast iron pans, learning about the different types of stainless steel and which ones are toxic with nickel in them, and switching away from polyester plastic-based more to cotton, learning about healing and battling pneumonia, overcoming that, and realizing that eyesight can be healed with things like adaptogens, throat powder. So that's I'll leave that for the intro. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Stone, and had a beautiful drive into Toronto today. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. I always enjoy our conversations together, and I know you're with family right now, so always respect your time. And let's see what kind of topics we can get into about past, present, and future. The floor is yours, Mr. Stone.
That's a mouthful.
It was.
Oh,
Yes.
well, we've talked about this before, long ago. Um, we have access to all of it, obviously, but the most important thing is now. and what we do with our time. So, and that clip I sent you just resonated, and I thought, well, that'd be cool. Even though you probably don't even play golf, but
I do. I'm a
uh,
lefty. I had to learn because that's all my dad had. I had to rewire my brain to figure out how to do that. So we are capable of change. Neuroscience proves this, right?
mm, everything we do has ramifications, and but everything we do is meant to be. Um, Funny, I was talking to a guy a couple of days ago who was a mess. Kind of a story. Um, he was with one woman, has two kids, together for 13 years, and apparently she cheated on him. So he left her and found somebody else, and he got her pregnant. And now, of course, he wants to go back to the ex who he's married to. What a dilemma. And he's telling me this story, and holy cow, you're fucked. I can't tell you what to do, but what I can say is whatever decision you make is the right decision.
Yes.
Because right, wrong, or indifferent doesn't really matter. They're all lessons. And you got to go through what you got to go through.
It's
It's very difficult.
like yesterday on the phone, you said there's no such thing as a waste of time. And so often it's easy to like the subjective is black. There's really no black and white, right? There's no wrong decision. There's only the decision, and that is the way that it played out because the universe doesn't make mistakes. It is perfect. Everything that happens is meant for our path, for our growth, for the betterment, for a lesson, a challenge. Everything that we do, everything that we choose, it is meant for us. We wouldn't have chose it if we weren't meant to go through it. That's there's a lot of power in that, and there's a lot of peace that comes from knowing that everything happened for us. Wasn't punishment, right?
Well, not necessarily. It could be punishment. It depends on how you look at it. But
Depends on
remember, I
how
think
you define.
we talked about looking glass. Um, it's old technology, but to most people it doesn't exist. But a couple hundred years ago or less, not much less, but they were capable of. They had a looking glass. They could look into the past, look into the future, and you could go back into the past, apparently take pictures, and even kind of try to prove it that you did, because most people would be skeptical, and
Yes.
try and change the past. But it seemed no matter how hard or how many times you tried to change the past, and this has been in the movies, of course, they show us everything, but the same result always happens.
If it's a
So,
fixed moment in time. Absolutely. Tesla, he developed a spirit phone. You could actually talk to your ancestors who have passed on. You could
yeah,
communicate with their spirit. Yes, so Looking Glass is older technology. They have technology that's literally out of this world, like quantum on steroids. I sent this to a friend recently, actually. Uh, Chief of Staff was they had a briefing at the White House, and there's a science advisor just stunned a Texas summit by claiming the US can manipulate time and space. So it is a military, one of the military branches has access to technology that can literally warp time and space. They didn't outright say which one it was, but I have a strong inclination that it is Space Force, considering what they are all involved in. I could be
that's
wrong,
interesting.
but the
It's interesting.
technology does exist. So with learning new habits and unlearning old ways and creating different ways of behavioral patterns, the neurons is called synaptic pruning. It will like separate from the old path and start forming new paths in the mind. So that's similar just to what the as above to the so below. Pathways in our mind are kind of like traffic and streets. You do the same thing every day. It's going to make the path stronger. You start new ones, and it almost alters your reality completely because you're creating a whole new timeline, right?
Mhm. Yeah, well, that's a good point. Creator, creating, we're capable of creating our own reality
Yeah.
because really it's in the mind. We're capable of having goals and following them through, but change is very difficult for the average person, for most people. So, I mean, like a habit, everything's a habit. Eating, you said, you've changed a lot of the things you use and eat and wear. Everything has a frequency.
Mhm.
So, changing a frequency is very difficult. And then on the other hand, it can be very simple. And
Yeah.
I think it's the mind that holds us back because of the habitualness of what we do. We're so used to doing something, we do it subconsciously. And so it's very difficult to change for most people. So see, I still smoke cigarettes. That's a bad habit, very difficult to change. And I
Well,
have quit many times, but once for 10 years.
if it's
But again,
counteracted, right? So
mm,
I sometimes do things in the extremes. You've known me a while, you could probably vouch for that. Uh, I had to do a lot of healing recently, and through the use of magic mushrooms, it was just uh, an added extra bonus. I didn't intend. I like I told myself I was enjoying cigarettes, and it's a nice break and stuff like that. It's interesting that the magic mushrooms actually helped me to quit smoking.
how's that?
Well, they're the medicinal properties, the psilocybin, how it responds with the brain. It it just completely rewires everything, right? So they're actually using it to help people get off fentanyl and quit cigarettes now
Interesting.
in
Yeah.
clinics,
Hmm.
which I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
It's all
I
about it's all about balance, right? The ancients used to call this what we call God. That's what the ancients would call the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind, because everything, that's what the moon actually represents. Is the a full moon is an open subconscious mind, awake where anything can get in, right?
That's a good point too about the subconscious, because the subconscious actually knows everything, the
Yes.
past, the present, and the future. But we have a very difficult time tapping into that. And I might say that when we dream, of course, we think we're just making stuff up. And sometimes that's true. But if you think of it in a different way, we're actually going into a different timeline or
Realm,
uh,
dimension,
realm
absolutely.
dimension. Yeah. And as I've said, we're creators, so we can actually create or go places we intend to go in our dreams. I know because I do that regularly. I use it to help me go to sleep, actually, in a lot of time, a lot of cases,
Lucid dreaming, when
because I
you
can direct
realize,
my dreams.
yeah, when you realize it, you can totally direct it.
Like you can have good dreams or you can have bad dreams. You go to bed with some type of issue or anger or something happened that you're not happy with and you dwell on it, it goes into your dreams and it just multiplies and you don't sleep well. but um, you know, I'll use, for example, golf. I can visualize every single hole on a golf course that I play. And I go to the first tee, I put my ball in on the tee, and I step back, and I mean, I can visualize every part of it, um, and go through the holes consecutively. And usually by the third or fourth hole, I'm not awake anymore. I'm sleeping. So of course, we don't really remember half of or more than most of what we dream. Sometimes you wake up with a thought that, oh, this happened or that happened, and Leslie's done that. She wakes up and, oh, I was dreaming about this, and tells me about it.
Mhm.
But most of the time we don't remember. So I mean, that right there, remembering is a gateway to the past, isn't it? So the past is
Yes,
always there.
in the
It's always there.
mind.
And that's why people have so much trouble dealing with trauma, past events, things that have happened that they're not happy with. And they wish maybe they could change what happened. You can't change what happened. And what happened was supposed to happen, no matter how horrible it was. And there's a lot of horrible things that happen to people. Um, Getting over it and accepting it to be able to move on, not to forget it and put it away and not think about it anymore, because that's not dealing with it, because then you're just carrying that weight. I think acceptance is probably one of the most important parts of healing, that I did this because of that, and I can't change that, but I can change how I might react in the future or do it differently in the future. So there we are, actually, maybe even not necessarily fixing, but planning, because the future you can plan, and it doesn't always happen the way you plan, but change is part of a plan, and it can be moved into the present by taking steps to change that. But accepting everything that we've done instead of regretting and grudging and holding on to things, that's just a waste of space between the ears.
No,
And
regrets it doesn't
we're all
serve.
guilty. No, it
Regretting
doesn't serve.
things is not accepting it for the nature of why it occurred in the first place. You said wisely in a previous talk that we had done, knowing yourself is acceptance of all things. There's a certain
Mm,
type of inner peace that comes from accepting, and it can be difficult sometimes if the mind is stuck in overanalyzing. There's a purpose for that, right? And that comes with maturity and emotional growth so that the mind can learn that it doesn't like to be caught in those frequencies anymore. So
mhm.
there needs to be change in order for things to change in someone's life. I came across this quote, beautiful today. Um, Anger turned into determination is actually a high frequency. Don't hold it in your body. It will only poison you. Transmute it into courage and willingness. Burn it up as jet fuel for greatness. Emotional alchemy is one of the highest forms of magic you can do in human form.
Mm,
Transmuting the energy.
mhm. Yeah,
Right?
and there's a one of the students that I had years ago who used to talk about pain leaving the body. It's a good point, because how we feel mentally or emotionally translates into the body and pain, and so he talked about having the pain leave the body, which most people don't understand that concept. How you think is how you are. If you think that you're in a certain way, well, you're gonna you're gonna believe it subconsciously. Again, we go subconscious all the time, even when we're awake and we're talking now. The subconscious is still going at it, um, and even as I speak, the words come from really hard to explain where, and I won't, but it does come from the subconscious, I believe, which is
Subconscious,
connected to all things.
it connects to everything. It is like the all-knowing source. That's what people call God, is just
Mm,
the electromagnetic energy that flows through all things. That's what the subconscious is. It's connected to everything. That's what creates synchronicities and events and unfolding and why things happen the way that they do. There's no
right,
accidents in the universe. There are none. It's
and then
all
so
programmed.
very purposefully, the people that control everything have programmed our minds, um, which of course is connected to the body. All the indoctrination keeps most people from seeing truth or reality. And reality is another subject entirely. What's real? Even the dreams are real in a sense. I mean,
What's your
technically,
definition of real, right?
well,
Exactly.
yeah, that's a tough one. That's another thing to talk about is what is reality, and to each person that's different. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, it's a crazy world, but it's very hard to break free of the programming. That's why they call, of course, television shows programs.
Yes,
Uh, yeah,
because
and
programming is addictive and they know what happens in the brain with the dopamine receptors in technology. You just see people out and they're glued to their phone instead of in nature connecting like we're
yeah,
meant to. The reason why they they program so many people with movies, TV shows, social media is because they know the power of conscious creation and what we call manifestation. They want us to create the reality that they deem in our best interests, right? So it's up to us to choose conscious programming because the mind
well,
is
they
the most
don't.
powerful computer. We have to
Yes, but
choose our programming, right?
they don't deem in our best interest. They deem in their best interest. That's why they're programming us. And if you think to yourself enough times something, anything, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's true or not, you start to believe it. If somebody tells you you're a certain way enough times, you start believing you're a certain way.
Yes.
It's incredible how powerful suggestion is, and that's why. And don't get me wrong, I don't believe we had a fair election, and I don't believe we ever had a fair election in my lifetime, and I'm going to be 65. But people actually think they went and voted. That's a procedure that they've made for us to believe that we actually have influence on who our leader is. That's another.
Yes, because they know energy always corresponds, like they study astrological events, right? So it's usually they pick specific lunar activity based because the moon is emotional and subconscious. So they pick that. And a friend of mine was noticing too. It's funny. Someone said Mother Nature wasn't happy with the outcome because a friend of mine had noticed that big windstorms happen after certain events. She's been noticing the correlation. So there's a lot of emotional energy, especially around elections times. We got about 7 minutes left. Why don't we do some wrap up, closing, and we covered a lot of different topics. It's been a while since we last talked, even though time in the linear sense is very subjective. Um, Interesting where we are now and where we were, all the changes that's coming. Like you said, you're excited to grow your teeth back.
Well,
with
that
the
would be something,
cool
yeah. And
technologies that,
amongst other things.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd love to fix all my ailments. And I can control them to a certain point. But it would be nice to have the technology that we're holding back to be able to be whole again physically. Um, but yeah, it's a crazy world we're born into. And we try to make heads or tails of what's going on. But honestly speaking, we don't really have control over, for example, who we elect. But we do have control over how we think to a certain extent, because remember, we have all this programming attached to us, and our belief systems have been messed with, so that, a lot of people believe um, that we're spinning on a ball flying through space, and yet I've never seen a new star in my entire life, and I look at the stars every night, but there isn't clouds. It's just our common sense has been pounded out of us to the point where we can't even think straight. We're just regurgitating things that we've heard and seen by mostly the media. I think the media controls humankind more than anything there is, other than the education system, um, which was created in order to indoctrinate every single child on this planet. So it's a crazy world and it's a crazy time, and I'm real lucky that I have um, my amazing wife to ground me, give me hope, and someone to love and love me. It's that makes life a lot easier. People don't have that, which I think is sad, but then, hey, they've got to go through what they've got to go through, and maybe not everybody's meant to be in that way. Kind of crazy life. Look, one step at a time, like a journey, one obstacle at a time, just a golf game, which a lot of people play golf don't have any concept of, but it's a game of life. Every single shot, every towards the ball. Tiger Woods was the best player in the world, not just because he practiced all the time, but he could visualize exactly what he wanted to do with that ball. And a lot of times it would happen. And so without an imagination, we're going nowhere. We're going in circles, doing the same shit over and over and over again. So it's hard to break out of that matrix of anything. And a bad example again is, look at, I was a professional drummer and I put an ad in Floyd McQuaid to be because I retired. And that was a year ago. I got a call a couple of months ago from some guy. I don't know, dude. Somebody passed my name down to somebody else because I had slash vocals on the ad. And I really I never intended to be a vocalist. I did backup vocals when I was professional. And they asked me to audition to be a singer. Well, okay. I went and I passed the audition. Now all of a sudden I've got like 30 songs to write. And we have a gig in August, which is, holy cow, that's not that far away. Brand new band, all original material. And I think to myself, well, how the hell am I going to do that? And so I just write. I write what comes out of my head and onto a piece of paper, and hopefully they're meaningful. At least they're meaningful meaningful to me. Lyrics, people don't hear the melody and the beat and the instruments, and they don't even really hear the lyrics except for a few words here and there. So interesting. So I'm morphing into something that I have never ever intended to happen. Anyway, enough about me.
It's interesting the path that the universe sometimes takes us on and how unexpected it can be. It is very important that we realize that we are co-creating our own realities. Like from a young age, yes, we're programmed by our parents' belief systems, but as adults, we have the power to choose that. And we can choose our frequency by actions and people that we surround ourselves with.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important too, because happiness, I think we all strive to be complete and to be whole and fulfilled. And we have to do what we have to do. And I think that's a perfect place to leave it off. Thank you, Mr. Stone, again for your time.
Always a pleasure.
Bye for now.
Ciao.